Well, hello everyone. Here, show you right here is a salvage joke right here, talking about with the salvage your cars if it's gonna be what you call clunkers it is, and as well as for anybody like wanting to talk about like a joke like you have right here, a talk like for a gentleman that I know that more likely that wants to hop into one of those old cars and take it to the demolition derby it is, and you have right here's an example right here of an old car right here. With this old car that we're like wearing to where yeah, there's something about that that I don't like. Like there's something about the what? There's something about that that I don't like. And if we're you talk about right here, talk about for old cars. And with this old car right here is like the type of old car that it's like what does it sound like whenever you're turning in the ignition and like on the key that it sounds like boom 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 boom. And like knowing about I'm like there's something about that that I don't like. Like oh okay well the weatherman said it. No, I'm not talking about the weather. I'm talking about that just right down the street. Oh, that thing. That just right down the street. Yeah, that just right down the street. Oh, okay. If you're talking about the lawnmower, I'm like, no, I'm not talking. I'm not talking about the lawnmower. I'm talking about the just down the street. Like if you know that what you call if it's going to be what you call a neighbor or if it's going to be somebody that you may know around to say that block or so somebody around town it's like knowing about I'm like yeah then if they will be driving back and forth to the store or maybe to work or anywhere it's like knowing about the car the car it sounds like I can oh okay well that topic you're talking about I can yeah but anybody wanted to where, well, what about it? There's something about that that I don't like. I can, well, there's something about that that you don't like. I can, yeah, there's something about that that I don't like. And and some of them are like wanted to where, yeah, that clunker right there. And knowing about, I'm like, really, that the number of times that drive back and forth up and down the street or something. Anybody that may want to where that really, I'm like, well, if we ought to think about it, as to where that like any car, like wanted to where that when how long is too long to knowing about whenever you need a new car, huh? I like think about it, as to where are people going to drive their car until it sounds like or are they going to keep driving until it sounds like or how old is the car? How old does the car really need to know about? Is like for winter, it's ready to beat the dust. But you're like worried toward there's something about the that I don't like. I know, like yeah, like like you would know that car. It's like know about the car that's on the highway, right? Is that same car? The car that's on the highway, right? Like well, yeah, that same car right there. The same car that drives back and forth on even on the highway. You're like wanting to where anybody like want like hey that if you would be driving a car going at least 20 mile an hour, 25 mile an hour at the most, and you're like wanting to where you're going like driving past it, whichever it is, like and you're like warned to where if anybody warns us to where really, I'm like, wouldn't they get on your nerves a lot of times? And like when would anybody get would anybody get any kind of ticket for driving a car like that? Especially if like warned to where that yeah, you have right here, it's a license plate right here. The license plate right here would read something like what you call the county of Centralian or anything like that, any county or any state that more likely it's in, and think about I'm like really that anybody like warrant to where hey and I'm like they may say well it's a classic like yeah well I can tell you what man if you allow me to buy your car I'll be willing to tear it up for you you can go and trade it in for another one like but really that this right here is talk about for a gentleman that I know, and think about right here is like the car right here. That car driving up and down the street, and anybody wanted to where, yeah, that sound that goes like, or I'm like, well, why don't you just park that darn thing and leave it in park? Like, oh well, that thing. Oh, yeah, that thing. Oh, it's like talk about. Well, I needed to go back and forth to work every now and then. Like, well, I needed to. I needed to drive you for where I need to go. There's other automobiles that you can drive that other than that sound like. But anyway, but you see right here is like a talk about you for salvage joke, and if anybody were worried to where that have right here is like knowing about this gentleman right here that wants to hop into the driver's side on one of those old clunkers and want to take it, either for a test drive or want to take it to the demo. And you're like warning to her, like I'm about to weld the door shut on all both sides, and then think about putting the roll cage in there and having fun with it. Take it to the demolition derby. But you're like wearing to where right here is exhaust right here. But if anybody were wearing to where like the type of exhaust that more like that we may see coming out of a car. And we're like wearing to where the type of exhaust I'm talking about would be used to where that, yeah, the type of exhaust, kind of like this right here. You're like wearing to where like, like, and you're like wearing to where, like how old do you think a car is necessarily to where that really that it's time for a new one. It's time for a new car. But anyway, that you have right here is to where that a number of times anybody, if I say a number of times, about 4 or 5 times that the car you'll find it's like the person who's driving home from work, or if they're driving home anywhere, and that you're like warning to where that they like knowing it's like the same down like the car, it sounds like I like warning to her, hey, that that your car, the one that I don't really care for too much of the time, the car that's that the person's driving, at the time we warned to her, are you going to continue driving it until maybe the engine parts just start falling down from the bottom, or if anything decides to beat the dust, or whichever it is, because I am really getting tired of hearing that car driving back and forth. To the point to where I'm like, well, I tell you one thing about it, I can, like allow me to buy the car so I can tear it up myself. So anybody that may want to, or that really, that for anything about really like clunkers or something like that, then you're like wanting to where that if you're going to have somebody who's going to be wanting you to tear up an old car, and like I say a number of times, like back and forth, like say what, was that the lawnmower, or was that the or wait, is that the water heater, no, it's the car. I want that car. I want that car. But on your hand, the top out right here is like I want that car so I can tear it up. I want that car. I want that car. I want that car. I want that car. I can, but other than that, like anybody that may warrant or that, yeah, that with any kind of cars, that more likely that it's like knowing about like between 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning that you'll be hearing some neighbor stirring up the car. It's like or I can oh well like if somebody turn off that alarm clock, like, oh no, that's not the alarm clock, that's a just right down the street. I can say what? If you know that sound that goes like or does it sound like well, I tell you one thing, that if there's anything that needs to be fixed, that more likely it's going to be detected, say on a tailgate, whichever it is. But on the other hand, that talk about right here is this clunker right here, and this gentleman right here will be hopping into the car. It's like, think about it, it's like by the time he gets into the driver's side, he's like, I'm going to take this piece of junk to the junkyard. So you're like, I'm about to I'm going to have fun with this piece of junk. But on the other hand, that for any cars that more likely we may think that we want to tear up and thinking necessary to her, like, yeah, that car, that one that that just right down the street. Oh yeah, that car. Like, and yeah, well, I'm about ready to say it. Like, I tell you what, tell that guy, it's like, park that thing. Why don't you just park that thing and leave it in park? But on the other hand, talk about right here, like for anybody that wanted to talk about for like salvage or anything like that, and you're like wanting to where necessarily to where if it's going to be described by maybe colors or anything like that, designing, and wanting to where that any car parts that more likely that we may find inside of old automobiles. And you're like wondering to where I'm like, really, that there's going to be somebody who's going to be driving their car long enough to where they're going to allow it to just beat the dust. And you're like wondering to where there may be some drivers that more likely to do that, is to where that they're not going to save up for another car, and like wondering to where, especially on the highway. And they're gonna be driving the car on the highway and think about, I'm like, what does that sound like? And yeah, that car. I mean, did you know that it takes that person? It takes them 3 hours to drive to work, and then, 2 hours to drive to work or so, and 3 hours to drive back, as well as up to about an hour to drive to the grocery store and back, and as well as maybe even just to drive to the gas station takes them 45 minutes just to drive to the gas station. It's like knowing about the car only goes about maybe 25, 30 mile an hour at the most, and like knowing about like or like knowing like or is it like but on your hand, it like talk about see that just right down the street or so, and if anybody were warned to like need like the license plate especially, but you see right here is this clunker right here, and if anybody wanted to where knowing about, I want that car. I want that car so I could tear it up. But on your hand, that with this example right here of this clunker right here, and anybody that may want to where you have right here is like maybe for a nice, if you want to call it, maybe some worn and torn leather seats, as well as like maybe the car that could have what's called a real weak, poor transmission, as well as maybe an oil leak on the bottom or so, and you're like wondering to where, yeah, that for how long would it take for anybody, how long they usually tell us to where whenever a car is ready to play it out, and you're like wondering to where, hey, there's something about that car, there's something about that that I don't like oh, okay, there's something about that that you don't like. Well, you ought to go ahead and tell the weatherman that, like, well, what is the weatherman going to do? Well, I was going to tell him that it's going to be what you call it's going to be raining, and knowing about like for how well the car is going to like it. Well, I'll tell you one thing that but the car right there, a salvage car or maybe salvage boat, whichever it is. But just think about it to where that if anybody were like say if a car becomes too annoying, and then more likely they're going to say is to her that this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to go ahead and key in the ignition and start up the car, and it's going to sound like bah, bah, bah. And you're like word to her and you're like word to her, okay, well listen, I'm like, if it's going to sound like then I'm going to be like saying that I'm going to go ahead and what you call start up my lawnmower, and I'm going to allow it to go like bah, 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 bah. And knowing about who's going what you call win the most annoying the most annoying sounds on a street contest, whichever it is. But anyway, but talk about right here. I talk about I know about here for Salvage Joke right here, May 25, and thanks for watching. Have a great